Okay, let's go ahead and call to order the work session of the East Grand Forks City Council for Tuesday, June 9th, 2026 at 5:01 p.m. Would the city clerk please call roll?
Mayor Mark Olson.
Here.
Council President Brian Larson.
Here.
Council Vice President Tim Riopel.
Here.
Council Members Tammy Schumacher.
Here.
Ben Pukshavinsky.
Here.
Dale Helms. Here. Don Kazemi.
Here.
Karen Peterson.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Just a reminder to turn on your microphones. First discussion topic here today is renew building inspections contract with TrueCheck. Ms. Ellis.
Yeah, after Widseth had removed themselves from the building inspections, what's the word I'm looking for, contracting for the city, we had to go out and look for a new service or a employee to handle our building inspections. At that time, it was difficult to find somebody or some type of city that was using a full-time person. People were going more to like a service contract or professional services. So we went out, looked at two different groups that did building inspections. We had hired TrueCheck, and we put them on a 2-year contract with the possibility that we'd maybe look into a full-time person. Still not sure at this point if that's the direction we're going to go. I feel that TrueCheck has done really a good service for the city. They're very thorough. I think they're here 2 days a week, but we have 2 persons that are here to answer questions. They're very receptive to contractor questions. They answer phone calls, emails, all 5 days of the week. So with that, I'd like to renew their contract maybe for a longer term. They're hoping to keep their services at the same cost for the first 3 years. And then after that 3rd year, they do have a reopener in the contract just in case they need to review what the costs are to the city, if there's an additional cost that they may need to add. But that does allow us then to bring it back to the council in terms of the contract renewal. So that's where we're at. I did include, just for your benefit, in terms of building inspections, yearly revenue for the last 3 years while they've been here, what we're taking in versus what the cost is for their contract. And they're either, at this point, we're either making some money and or kind of breaking even on that. So really, what we're typically paying for is support staff, admin, those types of things. Some of the things that we are also, in fact, looking at to, again, bring in more revenue is that we did increase the cost of our permits. I think it was 2 years ago. We are looking at our special permits, so things like mechanical, plumbing, driveway aprons, the possibility of, we do different things for cost per, we issue permits based on cost per square foot, which is based on a 5-year average of what cost per square foot is for commercial and industrial buildings based on the classification. The last time we did review of that 5-year average was from 2017 to 2022. So I know the costs of materials and things like that have gone up. So we'd want to review that again too, which may make adjustments to that. The other possibility that's not related to this, but you know, in terms of trying to keep our costs down and our revenues up, is that the fire department has really taken into our building inspections process. They're helping us more with plan review. They're helping us a lot with inspections and different things that are needed, which has been a great help to us. And so the idea of maybe looking at some fire inspection and or fire plan review fees might also be an option. But that's kind of where we're at. If anybody has any questions in terms of the contract.
Okay, thanks, Nancy.
Yeah.
We'll start with Mr. Helms.
Yeah, thank you. I have a couple, 3. first of all, how much did we pay this company last year? 25, how much did they earn?
Last year, we paid them $72,948.
Okay. So, I read this contract. I think I read it pretty thorough. I'm not real hip on a 5-year contract. I still think that I would like to see us think about having our own full-time inspector. One reason is because he's making $72,948 and he's part-time. So just think what we could have if we could hire a full-time, and then he could do other things besides that. And then we could get back in, we talked about inspecting apartment buildings. You know, we could get back into all that kind of stuff. I would still seriously like to see us look to have our own inspector. And frankly, most everybody knows that the one we have right now, there's been some issues with a couple contractors in town. And frankly, it doesn't have a very good reputation right now from what I'm hearing from contractors. I hear from a lot of people say they wouldn't even think about building here right now. So I don't really think I want to go into a 5-year contract with them. Although I do see on here, Ron, you can correct me, but it looks like that either party can cancel at any time they want in there. So does that mean if we decide to do something internal, we could break that?
Either party can cancel with 60 days notice.
Yeah.
So it's, yes, your answer is yes. And then if it was for cause, it would be 15.
Thank you. So I got no problem with what he's, well, I kind of have a little bit of a problem with what he's been doing, but although he's been doing, I mean, I think he's been by the book, you know. So, but it just seems like there's a lot of things in there that could have probably been eliminated, maybe could have been maybe notified sooner, or maybe a little bit more groundwork communication or something in there to solve some of the problems that has been going on. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Okay, thank you, Dale. We'll go to Mayor Olsted and then Mr. Riopel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Myself, I think 5 years is probably too long. I think 3 years would be great. I mean, they want to keep their fees for 3 years the same. I think that's where we need to line up the contract with also. Yes, we know there has been some issues out there. I think at the same time, I would like to direct staff to take a look at, again, what it would cost. I'm assuming it's going to be about $125,000 to $135,000, that including benefits, to have somebody on staff. So you'd come up with additionally $50,000. So you got to figure out where that's going to come from. But I guess to get the accurate numbers for, because it's probably been a couple years since we looked at it. So.
And this is for 2 people. There are 2 people employed. It's Greg and Alec. They're only here 2 days a week, but they are available 5 days a week. They do answer phone calls. They do answer emails. They do plan review on their off days. They're here in addition if we need them to be. So if they know that there's a big inspection or something like that on a Monday, they will be here on a Monday. They will adjust schedules.
But we didn't hire 2 people. We hired one company, and he's got an assistant that works with him, and
right.
He brings him along. But they kind of work. They go around together to all these places. You know, I mean, it's not like one's working the south end, one's working the north end type thing. They kind of stick together. So, to me, 2 people that's just his assistant. It's kind of like training type thing, you know. So. I don't think 2 people into this salary, you know, I don't know if he's charging for both people, $115 an hour for both people to be at the same place and doing the same thing. To me, that's kind of double paying.
Well, that was to start, so Alec could get his license, but I think having 2 people available means that if Greg is doing something else, we have an additional person that can do a separate inspection and or can be here. If we have 1 person and they go on vacation, then no one's getting an inspection. So.
But I think that's part of the problem we have right now, because they're only part-time. We're holding up contractors on jobs on a lot of things because of that. Because a lot of stuff isn't getting addressed quickly like it should be, and it costs contractors a lot of money. So that's the way I look at it. So that's why I would really like to see us really talk a little bit more about the in-house, and like the Mayor said, you know, maybe we got to come up with some more money or whatever, but I still think that we could probably keep that person busy. You know, like I say, he could do other things too then, or she, or whoever it might be, you know.
Okay, thanks, Dale. We'll go to Mr. Riopel.
The mayor alluded to several things I was going to talk about, but when you talk about by the book, if we had our own, it's going to be by the book. It's not going to be because you're a contractor and you feel it's much better. No, this is what it says. This is what you're going to do. So I look at it that if we're getting 2 guys for the price of 1, we're actually doing pretty good here. We're staying ahead of the game. We're not losing money on this, where the other way we're going to be in the hurt bag $50,000 a year right off the bat.
Not getting them for the price of 1. She just said both of them are getting charged. They're charging double the money per hour.
Well, they're both going out separate now too. They've been going together, but the other one's licensed now, so he can go out alone. So he had them. Whether you hire one, you're hiring the whole company. So I agree. I think this is a pretty good deal we're getting. But yeah, 3 years, no more.
3 years is good. Yeah.
Okay.
I just have one comment.
Yeah, go ahead, Karen. Sorry.
So has the market changed in regards to availability of individuals to hire?
No.
So
We're-
we would still be
We are
possibly
continuing,
looking at,
yep, we're continuing to see the number of full-time building inspectors in the state of Minnesota going down.
Sure. So that was part of our decision-making process.
Correct.
Is the availability of individuals.
Correct, correct.
Have you actually seen those numbers, or heard somebody come up with those numbers and told you that, or are we just saying that that's the case so we don't have to
No, it is the case.
at least look and see?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at what Widseth was doing, I mean, they probably had 7 to 10 communities. These people, TrueCheck, are adding customers every day. You know, they're adding cities. So we know that cities are no longer looking for that full-time person. And part of the reason is that it's just a pay option. If I can be a management of a contracting business and I get, you know, I can do that type of thing, it pays more than a city job does.
Go ahead,
Is something else that we could look at with this company turnaround times? Is there a turnaround time analysis that we could do
Yeah, we can do that.
and try to have them make improvements on that? I don't know that that's realistic, but is that, I mean, this is what the contractors are saying, but is this truthful?
I visited with contractors as well. We don't have a rough turnaround time on our responses to people and what they need. I think there are instances that I don't really think we need to get into at this meeting, but there are instances that we could get into, but needless to say, I think our turnaround time is pretty good. I think our building inspectors are very thorough. They have an extreme knowledge of the building code. Before this, we had a number of complaints about our, inspection services maybe or maybe not being as tight with the building code, like they were picking and choosing who had to follow and who didn't, or, they were a little more lenient, and they were a little concerned with that. So, we've had complaints going in both directions. So it's hard to please one or the other group, I guess. I guess for me, being in enforcement from day one, enforcement isn't a fun job. People don't like it. They're unhappy if it's something that they're, that it's something they do or don't want. So it's kind of hard to try to please everybody when it's an enforcement job. So I guess to answer that question, we can look at turnaround times. I don't think it's the turnaround times. I do believe it's just, some people don't like the way enforcement is handled, and I think that they're still doing a good job, and I have no issues with looking into the numbers for the number of full-time building inspectors. If you want those numbers before the next before the meeting on Tuesday, we can provide you what the numbers were 10 years ago versus what they are now. Those are all things that they're up to you guys. So from a budget standpoint, we look at ways to reduce our costs and, improve our revenues. So this seems to be the most cost-effective way of doing our building inspections rather than hiring a full-time person or a person and a half. So.
Yeah, thank you, Nancy. And Carla, you handed out this spreadsheet here. Would one of you mind maybe just walking through 2025 to help us kind of understand or read?
Somebody had requested numbers, and so I just put together what we had in our system. So starting back in 2009, on the front page, we actually had an employee in the building office, and they had one assistant, full-time assistant. So he retired in 2012, so you can see there 10/30 in 2012 he retired. Then we had in-depth inspections, which is with Seth. And so what I did was, the top part are the expenses. So we have salaries, and then professional services is where the in-depth or the contractors come out of. And then I did put in there the revenue. And then I just took what the revenue and expenses were and showed what the expenses are over the revenue. That goes all the way across. And then what I did was I took the personnel expenses. So when we had our own employee in 2009, our personnel expenses were $171,000. And then we had professional services, which was probably just somebody coming to do something for $1,200. So if you go across, when we switch, we still have personnel expenses. For like now, we have Nancy is 25% of her salary goes there, and Brenda is at 50%. And so those are the personnel costs we have now, and then we have the professional services fees. So if you go to the second page, under 2025, the balance was we had $157,000 of expenses, and we had $59,000 in revenue. So that we had a loss of $97,000. We had $81,000 in personnel, and we had $72,000 in professional services. So we spent a total of $154,000 between personnel people doing personal things. So if you look at the bottom line, so I added those together. So in 2009, we spent $172,000 and some odd change to pay for our building inspector and our administrative assistant. So if you look at 2005, we spent $154,000 to have a contractor do the inspections and to have our personnel be at the window, be their assistant, answer calls, give out permits.
And the professional services went down with in-depth inspections as we removed them from our office. So we used to have them sitting here 3 times a week, and then we dropped it to 2 times a week, and then towards the end it was they weren't in the office at all. They were only available by phone and or setting up inspections. But otherwise, in-depth was not physically in our office the last couple of years. So that's why the numbers dropped, because they weren't charging us office hours.
And questions on the spreadsheet?
Just more of a general question for Carla and Reid. Is it common for a municipality like us to run a negative on this type of account for inspections? We're losing $100,000 a year here.
Well, basically every department does it. It's kind of like if you looked at our arenas.
Yeah.
It's a service that we have to our taxpayers. Mm-hmm. If you looked at most all departments, there isn't any other revenue generating activity except our enterprise funds, which is garbage, wastewater, stormwater.
Yeah. So you don't think this is like an anomaly among other communities like
No,
this?
no.
Okay.
In fact, if you look at, I mean, if you looked at most cities, I would say if you looked at the 2009 balance and you look to what we had at 2025, I would guess that the personnel has gone up
Okay.
considerably from then, especially if you had your own employee, because, you know, the COLA itself is probably 3% a year, plus a step. So when we usually look at personnel, it's about 5% or more every year. So actually, when we put the numbers together, I think Reid and I are both kind of like, whoa, we're actually doing really good in this department. If we looked at other departments and did this, it probably wouldn't be as good.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for putting this together as well.
Yes, you're welcome.
Thank you. Okay. Go ahead, Reid.
Yeah, thank you, Council President. Just maybe one last bit to note. I did do some work on looking at the pay for if we brought a full-time building official in-house. And we did this a couple of years ago, and Widseth indicated to us that they were going to stop offering the service. I'll start with, we don't have an official city job description for a building official, but I did reach out a couple of years ago to neighboring cities that do. Crookston has its own building official on city staff. In 2024, the salary for that official was about $76,000. So if you add a couple percent to COLA a year, we're probably looking at an $80,000 to $82,000 a year wage for that employee. That's just wages and then benefits on top, of course. David Drown & Associates, our human resources consultant, suggested in 2024, if we were to bring a building official on, it would likely fall somewhere in a grade 17 or 18 on our pay scale. A grade 17 in 2026 is a range of $72,000 to $100,000. That's just the wages. And then benefits, para, health insurance, if they're on a family plan, could add up to another $40,000 to that. So just to give a ballpark of what we'd look at for wages, low end 110,000, high end 140, 145,000 to bring on one full-time employee to cover this service.
Okay. Reid, do you have feedback that you need to craft an item for the agenda for next week's meeting?
Yeah, I think hearing what we heard, we'll move forward with the three-year extension to the agreement. And then we'll do some additional research on the number of building officials in the state and where it was a few years back compared to now.
Great. Okay. All right. Any further discussion on this one? All right. Sir? Yeah, are you looking to speak on the building inspections item?
Yes.
Sure, yeah. Why don't you come up here, introduce yourself if you would, sir. Let us know your thoughts.
I'm Roger Skeving. I'm the owner of Grand Trader Sales in East Grand Forks. We're just going through the building process right now. And Greg is probably one of the worst people I've ever had to deal with. His communication, what my architect is telling me, who's a local architect, and he does hospitals and all kinds of stuff. This Greg is putting us in that category. And you were talking about being rigid to the rule, and I have no problem with that, but he's going above and beyond. Before I could get a building permit, he wanted to know where my fire extinguishers are going. Before I could get a building permit, he wanted to know where my my exterior handicap parking is going to be. Before I got my building permit, he wanted to know what kind of shelving I'm putting in my store. Shelving has nothing to do with the building. And then he wanted to know what I'm putting on the shelving, which has nothing to do with the building permit. He has delayed the process of our building, I know, 3 months. Trying to deal with him is ridiculous. He wanted a wall. We gave him the exterior building, which was an all-steel building. The interior firewall was all broke down for him by my architect, but that wasn't good enough. He wanted to know every single wall detail, the 2x4 walls. That's going to be offices and other things like that. He wouldn't do the building permit until I put in drinking fountain. And my plans were already approved by the state of Minnesota, my plumbing plans, and they did not require a drinking fountain. But yet, he went above and beyond and said, I will not give you this building permit until you add a drinking fountain. So my architect added that, and then East Grand Forks requires a RPZ valve, or whatever, it's a backflow valve for water. He wanted that on the plumbing drawings, which is just it's just a small backflow valve is all it is. So my plumber told me, when I talked to my plumber, he said, during this building process, he goes, you're going to have small changes all the time. What you submitted to the state of Minnesota, maybe they don't carry that toilet anymore. Maybe they don't carry that sink anymore. He goes, I deal with the state of Minnesota. I go through and say, hey, this is a comparable one. He gets it approved by his person that he has to deal with, not with Greg. After the meeting we had right in this room a month and a half ago, we got the building permit. Nancy gave us the building permit, and we had a green flag to go on it. Greg stopped the whole project again on his own, and he wanted the state of Minnesota to approve the drawings with the RPZ valve and the drinking fountain. I had to pay another $1,550 to the state of Minnesota for them to review these plans again, which shouldn't have never been done. Why? It's small enough little things that my plumber could have taken care of it, and I told that to Greg, and I tried explaining that to Greg. He said, nope, got to go through the state again. That means if there's a toilet that no longer can be purchased, because the bid was 6 months ago or 9 months ago, I mean, I'm supposed to submit a whole new process, engineer drawings, showing that different toilet? That isn't right. That isn't how it works. He's going above and beyond. He's making it that much more difficult to do the building. If I had an option to redo it, I'd be building in Grand Forks, just so that you know. I would not build again in this town. He is hurting our city for growth. I was born and raised in this town. I believe in this town. I have my business in this town, and I can promote it, but I can't with him. He's definitely a negative feedback on our town. I understand the concept on his pay. I think it's great. Nothing wrong with that. Problem is his negativity towards the city. My architect, it's EAPC, they're a large company. They said they have never seen anything like this before in this type of building. Only in hospitals and schools have they ever seen this kind of workup. My builder, same thing. He's never seen it. We're having all these delays, and it's all because of him. He put a stop build on our property without even notifying me, without even getting a hold of me. I mean, he's doing things so wrong. The cost might be cheaper, but he's got an issue. And if there's someone else to hire, I would say hire someone else. I don't mind going by the book. I'm trying to go by the book. But he's going above and beyond. And that's my opinion.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Skeving.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I think that brings us to the conclusion on that item. And just a reminder, we'll be addressing this item next week as well, so not the end of the discussion. We'll go to item number 2 here, discussion on e-bikes, motorized bikes, e-motorcycles, and motorized foot scooters. For this one, we'll turn over to Mr. Huttunen.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President, council members. So after our work session discussion 2 weeks ago on this item, we had, I think, a lot of good discussion and feedback from the council. Sorry, I'm just trying to scroll to this item here. We did take a number of calls from residents in the community, and if you read the local newspapers, you saw the Grand Forks Herald wrote an editorial piece as well. It seems as though we unintentionally created some confusion. I believe it was unintentional confusion created specific to the pedal-assisted e-bikes or electric motor-assisted e-bikes. that maybe took away from our discussion that we were looking to prohibit the use of those within our greenway system. So I thought we'd bring it back to the discussion just to clarify that point. The e-bike that is pedal assisted, electric motor assisted pedal bike, in Minnesota state law is classified as a bicycle, just as a non-motorized pedal bicycle. And it is legal to be used in any setting that a regular bicycle is legal to be used. And we don't intend on, in updating and bringing out changes to our ordinance, we don't intend on doing anything to change that fact. The real differentiation we're trying to make clear and understand, have everyone understand, is that we have seen an increase in use of motorized bikes that do not have pedals, or motorized dirt bikes or motorcycle type of vehicles. And while those are not currently in our Greenway ordinance clearly defined what they are, Minnesota state law recognizes those as motorized vehicles. And a motorized vehicle is not legal to be used on our Greenway trails. That would be whether it's a four-wheeler ATV or a six-wheeler UTV, a dirt bike, whether it be gas-powered or electric motor-powered. In those settings, if they're not pedal-assisted, they're motorized vehicles and they're not allowed to be used in the Greenway. So just want to make sure we have a kind of a clear differentiation of those. I expect in still the next couple of weeks, we'll bring forward some changes to our Greenway ordinance to be adopted that will better clarify or define what a motorized bike or a motorized electric motorized dirt bike is, and how it's classified as a motorized vehicle. But it's not to try to create a prohibit use of the pedal-assisted e-bike on our Greenway trails. So any questions on that, happy to try to answer. I should add, Chief Hedlund and the folks in the police department did go through and wrote a nice narrative and some frequently asked questions that were added to the city's website and posted on social media last week. And I think those do a nice job of kind of talking about each different classification of bicycle or motorized vehicle and what is and isn't allowed. And those could be a resource going forward, but just happy to answer, and hopefully that clarifies the discussion from a couple weeks ago.
All right, thanks, Reid. Any questions or comments on this item? Reid, were you able to kind of understand, like, where was the point of confusion? Was it just kind of in the discussion of all the different types of bikes, one was misinterpreted as being something else? Yeah,
well, I think there's two things. My impression of it from talking to a few folks has been been two things that confused it. Is one, on the information we put out, there's a classification of a motorized bike. That's the name of it. But if you look at the picture that's included on our website now, and maybe in the packet here, let me try scroll. So this is a motorized bike. This has pedals on it. You can see the chain and the pedals. An e-bike. If you scroll to this next photo, a motorized bike, this looks like a bicycle, but there are no pedals on this. And so there's kind of two different things. There's a motorized an e-bicycle that has the pedal assist, or there's this motorized bike that, for all intents, looks like a bicycle, but it doesn't have pedals on it. And so that's only an electric motor. I think that's one element that caused confusion to people is what is legal and what isn't. And I think the best clear delineation to make there is if it has pedals and you can pedal it to ride, it's a bicycle. If it doesn't have pedals and it's powered by a motor, gas or electric, it's a motorized vehicle and is not allowed. That's part one. The other part is in our Greenway ordinance, there was discussion on our current ordinance talks about the electric pedal assist bike having a maximum motor capacity of 1,000 kilowatts. And Minnesota Statute has since been updated to limit it to a maximum of 750 kilowatts. And we talked about updating our ordinance to match Minnesota Statute. And I think a lot of discussion 2 weeks ago was centered around that piece, about that 700 versus 1,000. I think some people heard all of that discussion and interpreted it to mean that we were going to make a class of the pedal-assisted bike prohibited. It's not the case. We just need to align our ordinance to be equal to Minnesota Statute.
Great. That's helpful. Thank you. Okay. Any questions on this topic? Okay, all right. Thank you, Reid, for that clarification. It's very helpful. With that, we'll move on to item number 3, request to declare vehicles and surplus property as surplus property for the purpose of selling them at an auction. Corporal Rue.
Thank you. Yeah, we have 2 vehicles that have cleared the court process from criminal forfeiture cases, one being a 2003 Yamaha Roadstar motorcycle, the second being a 2015 Buick Encore. So we'd be looking to have those declared surplus to be sold on our auction.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Corporal Rue?
Just a couple you're adding to what you're doing right now?
Yeah, so we're starting to do the auctions a little bit differently. In the past, there's been large-scale auctions. We'll probably do that each spring as vehicles kind of build up over the winter. But going forward, we're just going to, once they clear the process, we'll declare them and sell them sooner because they're a depreciating asset. It doesn't make sense to sit on them. So there are 2 that have recently cleared, and so they're not in alignment with the ones we have on right now.
Okay, and then one other question. I noticed on the website, or actually it's under the email that you sent out. Now they got some pressure washers and a sprayer and stuff on there. Is that all part of the city stuff too? That's
Yep, so that's, Reid could maybe speak on that, but that's surplus from the city that was added to this auction.
okay.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure it was local stuff and not, because sometimes that .gov gets a lot of out-of-state stuff and things like that.
Yep.
That's all I want to know.
Yeah,
Okay.
at our council meeting last week, there were a number of parks-related items, a couple of vehicles, a trailer, and pressure washers that
Yep.
were added. Those were declared surplus last week, so were added to the auction. I will, though, on that note, there is one vehicle listed on the auction currently that is a parks pickup. It's a 1997 Chevy Silverado. That got missed on declared surplus. So Mr. Rue and I spoke. The auction closes after the next council meeting, so we're going to leave it posted. But it'll be on the agenda next week for approval to declare surplus so that it can be sold. And it's no longer used in our parks fleet.
Okay, thanks, guys. All right, let's move on to our next item here. MMPA and WAPA Renewable Energy Credit Sales Agreement. Mr. Huttunen and then Mr. Mickleseth, if you'll join us as well.
All right. Thank you, council members. I'll kind of summarize this, and then Keith, if there's anything you'd like to add, please jump in. The city has an agreement, city through the Water and Light Department has an agreement with WAPA, Western Area Power Authority, for renewable energy credits that are available annually. Over history of the last number of years, the Water and Light Department has worked with local companies on the ability to have Water and Light donate those RECs to a company that needed renewable energy options. Some has changed in policy and how they can be distributed, and there became an opportunity for Water and Light to look to sell them rather than donate them. And in the process of Mr. Mickleseth working through that, received an offer from Minnesota Municipal Power Authority, which we're a member of, MMPA, to enter into a 15-year agreement for the sale of these RECs at $3 per REC. Water and Light reviewed the sales agreement at their meeting last week and approved it. Keith has been so gracious in thinking about this with the city and Water and Light. The basis of the original agreement with WAPA that authorizes the RECs as part of our purchase of power through WAPA is it lined up with the city directly rather than directly to Water and Light. And so Keith has suggested that the city receive the revenue from the sale of these RECs over the life of this 15-year agreement, with the idea that we create a special revenue fund in the city to receive these funds on an annual basis, and take the funds with an intent on using them for, we're terming it an economic development infrastructure fund, but essentially to look at improvements or extensions or additions to our private or publicly owned infrastructure, roads, utility systems, potential property acquisition for future economic development, things of that nature. Specifically, when you think about the recently acquired Simplot property or the industrial park and the need for improvements to the public infrastructure there, we feel it could be a good source of seed money with a nice long-term agreement in place to apply for those efforts, and in turn, hopefully spur new business growth and development, which is going to create new or added customers for Water and Light.
That's great. Thank you, Reid. Keith, as you start, would you mind giving us a little bit of background on WAPA and why they have renewable energy credits? Just to kind of
WAPA is Western Area Power Administration, and it's hydropower from South Dakota, Nebraska, in that area. And so we have a set amount of power that we've been receiving from them for quite some time. And originally WAPA they didn't allow us to do any of these things, and then just like Reid had stated, they recently now allowed us to. First we could just do it voluntarily, and so then Crystal, we gave them to Crystal. They were one of our largest customers, our largest customer, and then after that, then they said we could now sell them. So he explained it pretty well, and so MMPA administers it for us. It's called the MRETS account. So they were managing that for us. WAPA would, each year you get an allotment, and then those recs go into that MRETS, and then from there, then we sell them. We had MMPA even bid them out, and so we went through that process once, and the price that MMPA is offering us is a pretty good price. And like Reid said, if we can lock it in, because we don't know what's going to happen down the road. It may come where they extend out these requirements and let the state says you have longer to become renewable, and then the number may go down. But this was a way to lock in $3 million over 15 years, and so I guess that's why we're here. But as far as WAPA, we've been working with them for a long time. We have a contract that runs till 2050. I believe it's 2050.
Go ahead, Tim.
These recs can fluctuate too, right, Keith? One year they were like 33,000. Now
well, it's not that they fluctuate, but not that much. It's 65,824 this year. I think back in 23 they were like 71,000. Because we do get an allotment, and they fluctuate a little bit, but not a lot. So we're from 68 to 71. So it'll be pretty steady. But yeah, and then the process, once you sign the document, because we've already signed off, they could have a check to us for 2025 here in about a week. And so you'd get a couple $100,000 right away, and then process, they usually give us the recs again come March, and so within a year you could probably have 400,000 or so to use for infrastructure.
Great, thank you. Mayor Olsted?
Thank you, Mr. President. So with this fund being sent up, so to make clear that we are going to lay out within that, so we don't have to go back 15, 20 years and go, okay, what do they mean we're doing with this? But also at the same time, allow future councils to say, okay, we may change this through a process. But to lay it out to make sure that we understand and everybody understands it when they come off the street and read it, that these are being used for this, this, and this, or this, has to be laid out. Because if it's not, people can go, well, it doesn't say that here, we can use it for this. You know, so, and if we're looking at using it for economic development within infrastructure for the city, helping out with the discretion of the city council of where that money goes to. So the city council has a final say on it, and don't listen to any recommendations, but that's my opinion.
Okay. Mr. Helms?
Yeah, I'd like clarification. These recs you're talking about, are these distributed free?
Yep.
Okay, so it's like a gift. I mean, we didn't pay for them by belonging to this WAPA or whatever, or did we?
No,
Okay.
we buy the power from them, and so
Yes.
this is one, it's a megawatt hour is one REC.
Okay.
And so we buy that amount of power from them. And so this renewable energy, it started, as you know, years back when they wanted to get citizens to start using more renewables. And then these renewable credits, they came about, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. And so, yeah, we didn't pay anything specifically for the RECs.
Okay. That's all I need to know.
People, customers, businesses, so let's say if the grocery store, there's people that go do business with them, they like renewable energy. And so the customers tell entities that we want you to have renewable power. And so renewable energy credits is a way for, there's value to that, because people that don't have enough renewable energy credits or don't produce enough renewable energy, they can buy these credits to say that they're 100% renewable or 50% renewable, and then that helps their business in return. And that's kind of the philosophy around renewable energy credits.
Okay. Go ahead, Reid.
Yeah, thank you, Council President. If I may, to Mayor Olsted's point, and just kind of talk through the mechanics of that. We will, on the council agenda next week, we'll have the agreement that Water and Light approved last week for your approval, and then we would have a resolution that lays out the definition of how this fund will be created and the parameters in which it can be used. I would base it off of some of the bullet points here that I included in this RCA. So if there is any added scope that you'd like to see, I guess that discussion would be better had sooner than later, so we know what to draft for next week. And then in the mechanics of it, on the accounting side, you know, we've talked a lot recently about the 401 fund, right? This fund is going to get a number like that in our accounting system that would be included in the audit, and there'd be an audit trail annually of what the revenues and expenses have been from it, and a name. And so the name of it would be something along the lines of Economic Development Infrastructure Fund. Carla notified me last week I might have a character limit on how many characters we can put in our accounting system, but something of that nature, we'll have it named so that it can be tracked properly.
Great.
So one other thing to mention is every time we sit in a utility meeting, we have discussions and people come in and they start talking about doing something or adding people in our entities to our industrial park. They always come up with the utilities aren't expanded out into those areas, et cetera. You know, and so we kind of hit a dead end. And that was one of the main reasons why the commission and I and others thought that it'd be good to go towards the industrial park, because where are we going to create the most tax base the quickest? It's an industrial park. So that's kind of how this started.
That's thankful. Oh, thank you. Mr. Helms, you had a comment?
Thank you, Mr. President. Reid, does this have to be voted on next week? Because that's like giving us a resolution to read, and then we got to decide that night. It's not coming in front of a work session. So don't give you any time if you want to change or do anything. So we're kind of back to that. You know, Ben and I have both asked you to bring things to a work session first so we can at least see it before we know what we're voting on that night. So.
Yeah, good. No, it's a great question. I'd maybe look across to Keith. The agreement that was approved by Water and Light, no real time sensitivity to that. My reaction would be, if you'd like to see the resolution in its drafted form, that could come to a work session in a couple of weeks, and then we'd be into the first meeting in July before that was approved.
Yeah, it can wait. I mean, it's pretty straightforward.
I mean, I'd like to see it happen. I don't know about anybody else, but I'd like to be able to look at it before.
Yep.
I mean, not saying anything's going to be wrong or I'm going to change anything, but I still like to see what I'm voting
Or
on.
as I'm thinking out loud, maybe the other approach would be to get the agreement signed, as we'd have on the agenda next week approving the agreement, and then at the following work session have the resolution that designates where these funds will go upon receipt, and ratify a resolution that speaks specifically to the creation of the investment fund.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
At least get it
keeps it
going, you
moving.
have your money, and then you can decide how you want to spend it.
Just to clarify, forgive me, are both of you gone in 2 weeks?
I will be gone the work session of the 23rd. Yes.
Oh, that's, and you're gone too. So, I mean,
Yeah.
do we want Reid here and Brian here to discuss the resolution? That's all point I want to make, so.
Yeah. Fair point.
I was just going to say, it'd be my recommendation to go ahead and sell the racks, because that's what we want to do. And then after the fact, we can put together or have a resolution put together, and you can take a little bit more time instead of, you know, to develop your policy and to make sure that it's inclusive. That'd be just my recommendation.
Yeah, I'd just like to see it getting written up as the mayor suggested, kind of what he was looking for, you know, because if we do it next week, it might not be what he's after.
So you're looking at the 14th of July then, is next work session? All right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if you approve just accepting the money, we can put the money in the fund, and the resolution will just explain what you want to spend the money on, but we can deposit the money into a fund, for the fund, so that we get the money and it's accounted for.
Yeah. Okay.
Great.
That's a workable plan.
Yeah.
Can do that.
Good discussion. Appreciate that. Okay. Any other thoughts or comments on the MMPA renewable energy credits? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item number 5 then. Approving the year-end transfers for budget year 2025. Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, President and Council. I put together the list of the transfers that were done. This is for the audit. We are closing up on our audit. We're just working on the financial statement. So on here, I put on there what was budgeted. I kind of explained a little bit in the RCA. So if we actually just go to the list, might be easiest. So the first one is the EDA transfer. We budget for that. And what that is, that's the administrative account. So that's where our EDA director and assistant come out of, and their expenses, and then we just transfer that every year to what they spent. So we budget 179 and odd change, and they actually spent 171. Same thing with the next one. We budget for our tax abatement program. We budget $65,000. We actually spent $45,000. Cemetery budget $32,000. We actually moved $6,334. That depends on our lot sales, our columbarium sales, and expenses in the cemetery, but we do get that to a zero every year. Next one we have the 17th Avenue sidewalk. We had a few expenses this year, even though it was completed last year. And so we did move $8,686 into the project fund, which is the 415 fund, and that was taken out of our general fund, capital projects fund, which we budget $35,000 in every year. In the past, we have approved that we put so much in for street maintenance, which is like $280,000 every year, and then it goes up probably $10,000 a year. And that money was not all spent for the street improvements. So what we have done is that we've moved that budget into the capital project. So there's no actual money exchange, it's just the budget. And we stay within our budget. And so we moved $140,000 that wasn't spent. So we use that money to fund a lot of these projects as we go down the list here. That has helped because in the past, if we didn't have that money, that would come out of the 209 fund, which is our state aid street maintenance fund. And as of 2024, that was in the hole. And we get a allocation about $90,000 every year. So this really was actually a good thing that happened this year, because then we can grow that 209 fund for other projects in the future. So state routes to school, there was a little bit left over. It actually wasn't a per se project as in infrastructure, but we do have state route to schools projects where it's professionals, people coming to the schools. Nancy works with that program. Transit budget, we budget $100,283, and we did transfer that. Actually, the federal government wants to have more money in that than what's in there, but we do budget to what we expect to spend, and so we move that. If there was a shortage, the general fund always backs it. Debt service, we actually had a bond deficit in our Fund 539, which is our last project for the streets. So we had, the city had the streets project in 2015, 16, and 17. We did it over 3 years. And then we actually got a bond for it after it was completed. And many people paid off their small specials that they had. And so when we do the bond, we anticipate what we'll collect in interest to cover the payments and such. And we're actually short. We don't have that. And so Fund 527 was actually a 1995 refunding bond. And they had have cash in that. And so instead of looking at the general fund to fund this, we can take within our own bond funds and that have cash and that have been completed. They're all paid off. And so we did that for $104,000. Debt service for the 2017 bond, which is the same Fund 539. We budgeted $120 to cover that. Then we have LaFay Park. We had just a little bit left for some expenses that came through after year end in 2025, even though the project was completed. Most of it was completed in 2024, but we did know that there would be a few more expenses, so fixed assets for the LaFay Park were done in 2025, and they were broken down by the actual assets, so they were broken down by the dock and the sidewalks and the street. Land is not in our fixed asset, it's in our fixed asset group, but there's no depreciation on it. Next one is the sidewalk multi-use connection, which is over by the library. There was still a little bit of money to cover that, so that came out of that general fund, capital project fund. The quiet zone, there was actually a few expenses on that, and so we actually covered those with that general capital fund again. Sick leave benefit fund, we budgeted $75,000. And so that was moved out of the general fund budget. And just so you're all aware of, the cash balance in that fund is 705 is $676,000, and the sick leave accrual is $830,000. So there still is a little bit of a break that we're short, $154,000, but we only have to have enough in that fund as if we were going to close tomorrow. So we know that's not going to happen. We're not paying everybody off in sick leave, so we are fine at where we are for that balance, but that's why we budget every year to cover those payoffs for retirements, resignations, and such. Next we get to the Civic Center sales tax budget project. We actually had some leftover sales tax money from, well, actually we started collecting in July. And so we did move that money that we had collected up to that point of $340,000. And then that left like a balance of $700. So we took what we could and without taking all the cash. Then we get to the Civic Center sales tax project. We did get a Mighty Ducks grant for $250,000, which requires a match on it. When we were told we had to have a match into our resolution to accept it, we put down the building maintenance fund or the general fund. And what we always have been doing is that we've been budgeting, in case we get grants, a $50,000 match. So we moved 2024, in 2025 we did the $50,000, and in 2026 we don't anticipate another grant, so we will take the $50,000 to cover that Mighty Ducks grant, so we don't have to use sales tax dollars for the match. Even though they have explained to us that we can do that, we just as soon not do that because we know it's going to be very tight to get the project done with what we want done with the sales tax dollars. So that's why we're using that matching dollars in the general fund. Cemetery improvements, there was the columbarium we did. They did some sidewalk work. We actually budgeted for this a couple years because it wasn't always completed. And those come out of the perpetual fund to do those improvements. And the perpetual fund is like an offshoot of the cemetery, where when we sell a lot or columbarium, 40% of that collected goes into the perpetual fund to keep the cemetery going perpetually. That's why it's called the perpetual fund. Next, we have the EDA discretionary fund, restricted discretionary
Can I ask
fund.
a question?
Yes.
We don't see that on our packet here.
Yeah, the last one we have here is that Civic Center at 50.
Oh.
Yeah.
So we can get covered and pasted, because I'd sent it to Renee, and somehow it must have got on the next page. Well, you will have it on
I'm gonna still.
when you, no, thank you, we'll fix it, but it'll be on the resolution on, for Tuesday. So,
Please continue, though.
okay, so the cemetery improvements, sorry that they're not on there. And then there's actually just 3 more. And so anyway, the EDA restricted discretionary fund. So in 2024, the EDA looked at what they accumulate for interest in their funds, so like in the MIF loan, the IRP loans. So when we get a loan to a business, we actually collect interest on their payments, and we also collect interest on their fund. So it was decided that, you know, the fund is getting so large and there's so many restrictions of those funds that it would be better for us to use the interest that we would give those funds and start our own discretionary loan fund so that we could give out smaller loans to businesses, smaller business that just maybe need a grant of $10,000 or something. And so when we did that, we had put it into one fund. And then Maggie did some research, and the money coming from the MIF loan needs to be a little more restricted, so we actually have 2 funds. So this was done actually in the beginning of the year to split the MIF amount out of the discretionary loan, which was interest of 2024, and put that into the EDA restricted discretionary fund. So in 2025, the interest accrues just like it's supposed to now and going to those funds. But they're not a transfer, they're interest onto what their cash balance is. Questions on that? And then the last one, we haven't always put it on our transfers because it's kind of, to us, it's not really a transfer, it's just always been that. We get a check. So Water and Light have funded our building maintenance fund. We started at $250, and then now it's up to $400. They write us a check, first check in January, to fund in the 425 fund, which is our building maintenance. And so the auditors say technically it's a transfer because Water and Light and the city are one entity, even though they have to write us a check. So those 2 are missing. They will be on the resolution for Tuesday.
Okay.
Questions on anything?
Thanks, Carla.
No, whatever you said, I'm good.
Well, I don't want you to do that. I mean, if there's questions, I want you to ask questions.
Only when Dale's been quiet on.
Well, thank you, Dale.
All right. Any questions for Carla? I see none. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, that brings us, I believe, right, to the end of our agenda here for the work session. So we'll be looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Pukshivinsky.
Second.
Second by Helms. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion passes. Work session is closed. And then if everyone will stick around here, we have a special meeting. And Reid, let me know when you're ready. We can go right for it. Okay, let's do it. Let's call to order the special meeting of the City of East Grand Forks for Tuesday, June 9th, 2026 at 6:04 p.m. Would the city clerk please call roll?
Mayor Mark Olsted.
Here.
Council President Brian Larson.
Here.
Council Vice President Tim Reapel.
Here.
Council members Tammy Schumacher.
Here.
Ben Pukshivinsky.
Here.
Dale Helms.
Here.
Don Casey.
Here.
Karen Peterson.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. First item and only item for today here is consider approving resolution number 26-06-53, cannabis retail registration pre-approval to Red Iris LLC, located at 302 and 304 Demers Avenue.
Move.
Okay, we have a motion by Peterson. Is there a second? Second by Reapel. Any question or discussion? Reid, any updates for the, or not updates, but comments for the council?
Thank you, Mr. President. No real change from what we discussed last week at the work session, just maybe to the point on the resolution. And Mr. Galsted, I'll ask you to expand if there's anything you want to add, but we did try to draft the resolution that lays out the history of the work that's been completed so far and what we learned from Red Iris and Chicago Atlantic over the last couple of weeks. In the now therefore be it resolved portion of it, at the bottom, to maybe some of the comments that Councilmember Helms that you made requesting a timeline, we kind of ended on, Ron and I talked about it, ended on that we didn't have a great measuring parameter for how to put a timeline on it, because there's so many outside entities that have control. The Office of Cannabis Management on licensing and the contractor to build the improvements. So Mr. Galsted suggested adding these last couple sentences here. This extension may be revoked for failure to promptly acquire the property or to make substantial and timely progress renovating the building. So that at least we can have some level of enforcement to the companies involved in this transaction, that they can show us progress towards acquisition and improvements. And then we know, as we've learned with the others, that when you get into the licensing aspect for the Office of Cannabis Management, that sort of has a timeline of its own above and beyond the renovations. But this does have some control parameters on our part that will require them to stay timely and keep us updated on their progress.
Great, thank you, Reid. Okay, any final comments or questions? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Casey,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Schumacher,
Yes.
Pukshinsky.
Yes.
Riepel,
Yes.
Helms.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. That's the end of the agenda for the special meeting. I would be looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Pukshinsky, second by Riepel. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Meeting is closed. Thank you, everyone.